Thank you. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Lara Piacquadio, and I'm going to take you through the presentation of how it will help you drive content efficiencies across your workflow over the next 20 minutes. So after the presentation, please feel free to stop by our virtual booth and speak to any of our digital asset management experts who will be there to answer any questions that you have and dig more into your use cases. So let's talk a bit about what it takes to build a content pipeline that's really going to help drive efficiencies and deliver the best-in-class omni-channel experiences. We believe that it all starts with your enterprise work system. And let's see what happens when you take an enterprise work management approach to managing the entire asset lifecycle and show how you can gain efficiencies when enterprise digital asset management and content is at the heart of the process. This is how you're going to work on getting the work done in a timely fashion. So with key integrations and the right tools, we believe that the entire asset lifecycle can be actively managed all the way from your brief creation and your intake forms to resource planning, content creation, through to review and approval cycles, renditioning for multi-channel delivery and distribution. And then an end-to-end system like this, it's something to think about as it provides those accurate insights to help you measure the real content ROI and highlights where to focus in order to get things like the biggest uplift in your marketing programs. So if your organization has ever scrambled to find, those critical assets at pivotal media moments, you really felt the pain of systematic issues that we really need to look at solving, right? Things like fragmented teams, siloed workflows, and having multiple assets that live in repositories and are disjointed across your entire system of record. These type of challenges are definitely universal. Every media and entertainment customer we see goes through these type of challenges. And every customer's data point is really where there is an opportunity to influence either the buying decision, a subscriber, or a viewing opportunity, or even have your viewers have longer engagement decisions. So with our customers really demanding more, things like personalization at scale is key to making sure that you meet your customers exactly where they're at with the content that they want at that specific point in their journey. And with internal alignment, it really is elusive as the market shifts. We see teams that need to replan and align on their initiatives on the fly. We see things like wasted time that causes burnout and very manual labor-intensive processes and broken communications that are taking time away from that creative work and that creative execution. And finally, when we look across the board, we have this compliance challenge. Right? Compliance is critical. Brand excellence starts by governance and really ensuring that you have consistency across your channels that you deliver this content out to. So these marketing challenges, they're definitely universal. And we need to start to overcome these. And we overcome these challenges in a way that's going to help us gain efficiencies that go beyond not only the content pipeline, but really focus on everything from the inception of work, whether that is a form of strategy that you're planning or a request through intakes and creative briefs, all the way through to the execution, the approval, and the delivery of that content. And it's this type of enterprise work management platform that you must start to onboard in a system, and it's going to help you enable people to be able to deliver out these predictive results across the campaigns that you're creating. So you can really start to get this intelligent enterprise work system that feeds into things like your digital asset management system and beyond. And content efficiencies, they will start to naturally happen when you work smarter across your teams. So when you think about working smarter across marketing, digital, IT, and just other key business functions, you're going to start to improve the speed and the visibility and that quality of work. So from a visibility standpoint, as you start to work smarter across your teams, you're going to centralize all the work into a single location. So not just the assets, but actually all of the work, all of the creation briefs, all of the execution and the management of what goes into creating a campaign. You'll have things like predictability and speed, right? You start to connect ideation to execution. And then you're able to decrease the time in market. From a quality standpoint, review and approval cycles, right? Fewer revisions, quicker time to market through more efficient review and approval workflows. And then having all of this tied into a very compliant, governed work environment. So ensuring that all of the governance mechanisms across your content and the metadata is all intact can help you increase and adhere to your corporate processes. And doing this in an orchestrated way really helps to build an intelligent, collaborative work management system. And if we look at it from the marketing standpoint, it all really starts with marketing. And that's because work marketing platforms touch more parts of the business than most. If we think about it from the marketer's standpoint, especially creatives, they often find themselves juggling multiple tools and applications, and they don't really work well together. They're not really integrated. And while choosing to stay in that creative and productive side, they want to be responsive to things like request changes that come through. But obviously they're working in their creative environments. So with a marketing system of record, you can start to manage that entire work life cycle, from things like uploading and managing the assets to streamlining things like the status updates, review and approvals, and conducting all of this in a very timely, organized fashion. And ultimately, when you start to streamline these work processes into a single system of record, it helps to go all the way from strategy through to budget planning, through to the creation of the assets, review and approval, managing them in a centralized location, and then actually executing that delivery on those assets, right? Like sharing those assets out across channels, and then measuring it, making sure that you're measuring the campaign effectiveness and the asset content ROI of those assets as well. So that streamlined workflow process is really important across your organization and across the different teams. And why the workflow really matters? Well, first, it's a connection between our people and our process and our data to make those better decisions. And those better decisions are going to be made for marketing as a business and as a connection. It's an accelerant for digital transformation. So we focus first on our campaign manager. For our campaign manager, they have a scenario where they're taking things like the budget, resources, and timelines into consideration. That's what is very important in their upstream use cases. And they want to be able to define templates and designs and people and task them and track against that plan that they have. For someone like the digital creative ops, they get to work on deliverables and they directly align to business outcomes and create things like the digital content. They update the status of a task without ever leaving things like their Creative Cloud environment. So they'll be doing everything from aligning and reviewing and approving, all within the Creative Cloud. Then when you talk about the review and approval, generating a proof, making things like a side-by-side comparison so they can track versions, all within the context of the work. As you integrate these two pieces between the creative and the review and approval processes within a digital asset management system, you start to really streamline the effectiveness of how quickly they can do things like revisions. For our asset manager, this is really where the bulk of the digital asset management piece comes in, right? They're going to take these assets from the creative, they're going to store them with things like the associated metadata and share them out with the right people across the organization for things like internal sign-off, and then actually publishing that asset out from a distribution standpoint. And as the business becomes more global, there's definitely a pressure to create more and more digital assets that are more personalized, And there's an increasing demand to share those and collaborate on those assets with different people in the organization, whether that's for things like languaging that needs to be created on these assets. Content and information is really available and needs to be readily available within the metadata of these assets. And then that way, your asset, it's one master asset that can be accessible and repurposed and reused across the lifecycle. And an enterprise asset management platform, that's where you're going to control the asset lifecycle and set things like policies and procedures around how an asset goes from creation, amendment, and approval. And then this in turn is how you're going to increase the productivity of your staff, partners, and even like external agencies that you're working with, as it reduces the risk of using the wrong asset or the wrong version. And the enterprise DAM platform, it's going to provide a complete view of the assets within the organization, but it's also going to deliver things like robust content and metadata tagging capabilities. And this is really important when you think about the capabilities to be able to find the asset very quickly, search on the asset based on that metadata, and then have automation behind the scenes to transform the asset so it can support the widest range of different channels and devices that you're actually delivering the asset where these assets are consumed for your different customers and the different audience of these assets. And very lastly, as we move on to the next stage, once you have those assets and you need to actually get them out so they are being consumed and delivered, it's how you can then do a performance optimization of these assets. So as you launch the assets into the right channels and you automatically inform stakeholders of the delivery, allowing marketers and creatives to essentially work faster with that improved visibility across speed and quality of the assets, you're also managing the performance and you're combining project costs and time metrics with the campaign analytics. So that workflow takes you right back into the strategic planning and measurement, right? You go all the way from planning to the creation of the asset, to managing the asset, to actually getting an idea of the performance. How well did these assets perform? Did I stick to my campaign budget? Where did I go over? So that full end-to-end life cycle of the asset is what's going to deliver the right metrics out to understand where to improve or where to change going forward in the next campaign. And whilst we've illustrated where the content and the digital asset management sits, really as part of the enterprise work system, you're able to fully track the usage and associated costs of those creative assets. And this is going to allow you to get a tighter handle on things like the marketing spend. So this type of a combined solution provides you with this unique platform so you can have assets from a created and management standpoint all the way through to its full life cycle. So the ideation to distribution. And you can offer this all through one solution to manage that full life cycle of assets and eliminate the need for multiple islands of technology. And when you start to eliminate the need and have this one centralized place, you provide the CIO's office a very common goal of technology, right? One source of knowledge, not only on the assets, the creation, but the campaigns, the planning, the budget. And it's with this connected tissue that you can really bridge the gap between your campaign, your creative, your marketing, and your business teams. So when you think about how to deliver out the best-in-class assets across all of your different channels, think beyond just where you're storing and managing those digital assets, and really think about it as a system of record, right? A marketing system of record where you bring together your creative brilliance and your campaign management, and you piece those two things together to manage the full life cycle of the content, of the campaigning, and of the measurement to really execute at scale. And together, as you empower your marketing teams to deliver their best work, this is really what's going to impact that bottom line. So from a results standpoint, you want to think about how your organization can work better, smarter, and faster together. And these predictable results, they give the digital experience this strategic advantage. And it really helps your teams to transform the workplace and maximize how they create, manage, and deliver on that digital experience. So as you increase your project capacity, you then have the ability to take on more work, right? You decrease the time it takes to go to market with the assets. You're delivering your content and services on time and in things like multiple languages a lot of the time, in different formats. And you're also reducing the risk of any type of compliance issues that you may come across, right? Because you have that governance layer that's also managing the campaign and the assets. So as you start to see the benefits of transforming that digital experience, things like customer retention is increased. Your customers are going to become more engaged. They're going to retain subscriptions for longer. They're going to engage more. About 60% of an increase goes to upselling these conversion rates for members too. So you can take your customers into a higher loyalty and a higher propensity score just by upselling them with these different type of conversion rates that you see. Things like call centers, right? So in telco, for example, we see a 40% deduction in the call center volumes. So through a self-service customer care environment, you're able to really solve for your customers paying quicker, which is going to help reduce that call center volume. And then from benefits of the transformation in terms of the workplace as well, that visibility, right? So we've transformed the digital experience. Now we transform the workplace, giving your teams that cross visibility where all your work is done in this one location, this one system of record location. That's going to help increase your project capacity by about 30%. Through predictability and speed, you're going to be able to decrease the time it takes to market, right? And speed up with things like connected ideation and execution. So if you think about going from creation brief, intake form, directly into your creative suite and then managing the assets and delivering those assets, that's really going to help you go from that ideation to execution quicker. The quality of the assets, the quality of the delivery, things like review and approval of the digital assets. You're going to get them reviewed, less revisions, and a quicker delivery rate up to about 98%. And then driving those efficiencies for things like the fewer revisions can decrease up to anything between 29%. And then overall compliance. So we spoke a bit about the governance and making sure that you have compliant across your workflows and across your assets and brand. All in all, about a 5% increase in adherence to those corporate processes and policies that you have when you start to govern that within this life cycle. So this is really when you talk about your optimizing your assets and your content to deliver out those omni-channel experiences. You have to really think about transforming the digital experience through the assets that you're delivering, but also just as important is how you do this through transforming the workplace and bringing that all into a centralized system of record to be able to do that. So I know I'm just coming up to time here. If you want to learn a little bit more about the workflows that it takes to be able to power something like this across your organization, or if you have any questions or would like to learn more, please visit us at the booth and speak to one of our digital asset management experts. We'll be around all day. So thank you very much for your time.